The New York Mets made another trade last night to acquire Tyler Naquin from the Cincinnati Reds. What does this mean for the other plans the Mets have at the deadline, and what can he bring to the team? We'll talk about it on this bonus edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, let's just talk about the deal really quick, and then we're going to focus in on really the main piece of it, which is Tyler Naquin coming back to the Mets. The Mets sent out a pair of young prospects in Hector Rodriguez, an outfielder, and right-hander Jose Acuna. I'm going to talk about that in the final segment today. The Mets get back Tyler Naquin and Phillip Diehl, who's a left-hander reliever, who I will also talk about in the final segment. But essentially, this is a deal to replace Travis Jankowski is the simplest way that we can break this down. Tyler Naquin will be the new fourth outfielder for the Mets. Now, his best year came as a rookie in 2016, when he was actually sharing a lineup with Francisco Lindor in Cleveland. That was a team that went to the World Series, and Naquin was the starting center fielder. Now, he was third in Rookie of the Year that season, had a really strong year, hit 296, 372 on base, 514 slugging, 14 home runs, and WRC plus, again, measures hitters based on a league average of 100. His WRC plus as a rookie was 133, so 33% better than your league average hitter. After that, he dealt with a lot of injuries. 2017, spent some time back in AAA. In his 5 seasons in Cleveland, he had exactly a 100 OPS plus, which is very similar to WRC plus. So he was essentially a league average hitter. Ends up signing on a minor league deal to go to the Reds in 2021. Last year, hit 270, 333 on base, 477 slugging, 19 home runs, a 110 WRC plus. So slightly better than your league average hitter. This year, 246 hitter, 305 on base, 444 slugging, 7 home runs, a 101 WRC plus. You look at his F WAR of 0.4 and his baseball reference WAR of a flat 0. Yeah, he's a replacement level player, but there's more that comes with this. Now, he strikes out 26% of the time, walks 6.4% of the time. So, that's a little bit high on the strikeouts. The walks, it's decent. Overall, though, you're looking at a guy that's played right field this season. Not a great defender, but if you move him to left, the defense will probably play up a little bit more. And right this year, -3 defensive runs saved, -1 out above average. So you're probably thinking, what's the point of this trade? Why are you acquiring this guy that, uh, isn't necessarily an upgrade? He's just another left-handed bat that can face right-handed pitching, but you don't want him against a lefty. The Mets still haven't addressed that need to add a bat that can really rake against righties, and they already got Vogelbach. So why are they sitting here getting another lefty to add to this team? Simply put, the New York Mets have looked at what they did in the first half, and they're not going to get rid of Eduardo Escobar. Mark Canha has been good, not great, but he's been solid. They're looking at their team. They're looking at where they can improve. They know that, Lindor and Alonso and McNeil are going to be out there every day, and Nimmo and Marte as well. That's the core of your lineup, and you're trying to accent it. And essentially, I think what we've seen from the Vogelbach trade and this trade is that the Mets are trying to replace J.D. Davis, Dominic Smith, and Travis Jankowski. It's that simple. It's that cut and dry. Now, Vogelbach, he replaced Dom. This replaced Jankowski. A move still needs to be made to replace J.D. Davis. But that is the idea here. And you look at what this guy has done against right-handed pitching this year. Naquin, a 264 hitter, 333 on base, 472 slugging. 5 of his home runs have come against right-handed pitching, and 18 of his 21 extra base hits have come against right-handed pitching. He has a 117 WRC plus against righties. Against lefties, he's not good. Very similar to what you got in Vogelback. So now you have a couple of guys here that will be in the lineup against righties. I don't think Naquin's going to be in there every single day, but he's going to take some playing time from Canha. And then the other aspect of this, and this was reported by all the beat guys last night, is this is going to keep Jeff McNeil at second base. They've been playing McNeil in left field a lot whenever they're going to move Canha out of the lineup. This now gives them an outfielder to plug in instead. And this will give Guillorme more time at third base. So that's the idea here. The Mets upgrade from Jankowski. Naquin is a way better hitter. He doesn't give you quite the same speed and defense, but I think this is a move where the Mets are maybe saying, you know what? How much does the pinch running and the defense at the end of the games really matter? You got Brandon Nimmo, who's playing a great center field. You got Starling Marte playing a great right field. Canha's been solid out and left. Naquin can be a solid left fielder. If they want to give Nimmo a day, Canha slides into center. They still have better outfielders right now than they've had in years. And obviously, Naquin's not going to be a defensive specialist like Jankowski, but you can start him and you can actually get some offense. He actually has a little bit of pop, and it's not like he has no speed. His speed is in the top 29% of the league. So you can still pinch run him late in the game. And if you need a guy to go first to third instead of Vogelback, you still have that. So I think that is the general idea here. And this is also kind of a knock on Eduardo Escobar. I want to explain that a little more in just a minute, how the Mets can now construct their lineup. This is also a fallback plan here. If the Mets don't get that right-handed complement, maybe they are fine. And I'm going to explain exactly what they could be thinking in those lines. But before we get to that, whether you're ready to pop the question or if you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. There you can build the engagement ring of her dreams, as Blue Nile has simple online tools to let you choose the diamond shape, the size, and the clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind, so you can celebrate life special moments with fine jewelry from Blue Nile, as they have jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. Locked On Mets listeners will get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. All you have to do is use the code Locked On. Again, that's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress free and find your forever peace by going to BlueNile.com today. So this season, Jeff McNeil has not only been the Mets' starting second baseman, he's also been their fourth outfielder. That's a great thing he brings to the table, that versatility. This trade is in hopes of trying to keep McNeil at second base and also to get Louis Guillorme over at third. Now, the reason why the Mets would do this is because, for one, it improves your defense to have an infield that includes both McNeil and Guillorme because they're both plus defenders. Also, by keeping McNeil at second more often, you can continue to build that chemistry with Lindor because you know that in a playoff series, Jeff McNeil is going to be starting at second base every day. So this is a move to try to get a fourth outfielder so McNeil does not have to serve that role. But what it also does is it creates creates a platoon over at third base between Louis Guillorme and Eduardo Escobar, which I think is exactly what this team should be doing. Look at the splits this year with these two guys. They have an identical 133 WRC plus on their half of the platoon. So for Escobar, he's got a 133 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. He's been really solid against lefties. Has he been great? No. He's hitting 261 with a 294 on base. You like to see him get on base a little bit more, but a 541 slugging, 6 of his 12 home runs have come facing left-handed pitching as a right-handed batter. He has an 835 OPS. Now you look at Guillorme against righties. He's hitting 320, a 387 on base, 408 slugging, 795 OPS, and again, an identical 133 WRC plus. So this now sets up a platoon at third base. Escobar can obviously still complement Vogelback if they want to as the right-handed half of the DH, but then you have Guillorme in the lineup against a lefty, which isn't ideal. You look at the two lineups that I could see the Mets constructing right now based on the roster they just put together with these two trades. You got the lineup against righties, right? Brandon Nimmo in center, Starling Marte in right, Lindor at short, Alonso at first. That's your top four regardless, right? That is the bread and butter of this team. And then Jeff McNeil batting fifth at second base really is as well. So those are your 5 core guys. Now, when you get to the lineup against righties, you got Vogel back at DH, you got Guillorme at third, you got Nito catching, and you got Tyler Naquin in left. Now, Canha, I still think will get some time against righties, but there's going to be a little bit of a platoon going on there as well. You look at the lineup against left-handed pitching right now, and this is where the Mets still need to add because it's a bat short. You got Nema, Marte, Lindor, Alonso, McNeil, Eduardo, Escobar playing third base, Canha in left. Right now, JD Davis as the DH, and then you got Nito or your catcher, or your other catcher, whether that's Mazika or eventually James McCann. What this would set up is it sets up a bench where it either be Eduardo Escobar or Guillorme, Mazika or whatever backup catcher, Canha or Naquin, Davis or Vogie. That's where you're at here. And that's a much better team than they were 2 weeks ago. You added 2 players that are better than the 2 guys who are taken off the roster in Dom and Jankowski. Now, here's where this gets interesting. There's still been all the reports linking the Mets to Willson Contreras. There's also been reports linking them to Trey Mancini. Either player, to me, fits this roster really well with how it's presently constructed. If you add Willson Contreras, I honestly, and I've said this multiple times on Twitter and maybe on this show, I would not be surprised if the Mets go 3 catchers. And now you say that's crazy. Why would you do that? Here's why. We already talked about where the roster sits right now. If you get Contreras, you might want to DH him. But if you DH him and you start Nito, for example, then suddenly your backup catcher is your DH on those days. That is not ideal. I think the Mets could go 3 catchers because, for one, I don't see them pulling Nito off the roster. And when James McCann gets healthy, he's going to be on the roster. But 2, you look at the construction of this team and really the bench as is, you're just taking Davis out and you're plugging Contreras in. So that makes a lot of sense to me if they decide to make that trade. If they go Mancini, well, ideal flop right there. Davis, Mancini, there you go. That's simple. There's the roster. That's what you're going to go with for the rest of the season. The other element to this is if they don't make a trade. Now, that would leave JD Davis on the roster for the remainder of the season. Maybe. There's also the possibility that they could say, you know what? The price tag is ridiculous right now. The price for a Drury is way too much for a rental. The price for Contreras is astronomical. They want Alex Ramirez. They're not moving off of that. We don't want to trade him. Whatever that is. Mancini is going to cost us Ziegler, and we don't want to give him up. Whatever it is. If they decide the cost is too much for these position players, they can roll this roster as is. Now, that would leave Davis as kind of a sore thumb on this team, but you have Mark Vientos as a possibility, and even potentially later in the season, Francisco Alvarez could be a possibility. I wouldn't call it likely, but both of them are in AAA. Vientos seems to be about ready. That could be the internal fix here. But obviously, you want to see this team continue to be active. And I think what this trade shows you is Billy Epler is on the phone scouring the market, and he ultimately liked the cost to acquire Tyler Naquin here. And, maybe he's on the phone talking about Drury, and the cost was so much, whatever it was, that they just decided, you know what, let's get Naquin now. They'll like a couple of these low-level minor leaguers. We'll plug a hole here. We'll get another lefty arm as an option for us, and we're going to talk about the return in a second here. But the bottom line is this is a move to replace Travis Jankowski, make the team marginally better. Does not preclude them from doing anything else at the deadline. I want to talk, though, about the return in this trade, who the Mets gave up, and who else they got back with the pitcher, Phillip Diehl. Before we get to that, though, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find out the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So along with Tyler Naquin, the Mets get Phillip Diehl back in this trade. A guy that gave up 7 runs and 5 2/3 at the big league level this year and has pitched to a 4.24 ERA in AAA. Does have a good amount of strikeouts, but overall, this is not a huge piece in the trade. This is another arm, left-handed reliever. Obviously, that is an area the Mets need to address. I imagine they're going to be able to put him in AAA, and we'll see if you actually even see this guy this season. But I would not be overly concerned about this piece of the deal. Maybe he does join the Mets bullpen. Maybe they really like him. I still don't know how the roster is going to shake out because at this stage at 10 o'clock in the morning, they haven't made those decisions yet. But this is a pitcher that's not of too much consequence. He's a left-handed arm. He's 28 years old. Hasn't had much success at the big league level yet. We'll see. Whatever. I mean, there's just not much I can give you on this guy at this time. And maybe, who knows? Billy Epler could have identified somebody the Mets really like, and maybe he surprises us. To get these guys, the Mets give up outfielder Hector Rodriguez and right-hander Jose Acuna. Now, Rodriguez has been pretty impressive this year, 18 years old, hit 356 with 3 home runs and 16 RBIs in 26 games. The rookie level complex in Florida has actually been in low A this month in St. Lucie. Can play all 3 spots in the outfield. They've tried him at third base a little bit, but he's 18 years old. I mean, we have no idea what he's going to become. Now, it's not saying he's not talented. It's not saying the Reds didn't identify somebody that they like here, but it's going to be on them to develop this guy. And maybe he develops into someone that hurts you, or he could develop into one of the countless prospects that never make it. So you give up guys here in this deal that obviously other teams like, but they're not top 30 prospects. These are guys that still had a lot to prove. So you got the 19-year-old pitcher in Acuna, 2.67 ERA in 8 minor league games this year, including 5 starts. He's in St. Lucie as well, made his second start for them and tossed 3 scoreless innings on Tuesday. That's about all I can tell you here when it comes to these guys. Low level, maybe in 3 years, you're like, that guy was a Met, and you might forget all about it. Well, what trade did he come in? How is that? What was it? They got Naquin. It's going to be one of those deals. So I don't think that you have to freak out about the cost. I don't think you have to worry about this being a win or a loss of a trade. The bottom line here is the Mets get a guy that's better than Travis Jankowski, goes onto your bench, a legitimate 4th outfielder here, and you roll from this point on, and you see what's next and you see what's available for the Mets. I think they still have to find a way to address the bullpen, as we've talked about, whether that's getting a David Robertson, a Michael Fulmer, Jorge Lopez, a lot of different names that are out there. Daniel Bard from the Rockies. I think they could use a left-handed reliever, whether that's Joe Mantiply, Sam Moll. There's another lefty that Andrew Chafin could be available from the Tigers. Even on the high end, maybe you get a closer who's also left-handed. You get Gregory Soto from the Tigers. I imagine they're going to be listening right now on a lot of different guys, a lot of different trade possibilities. So the Mets have still time here to address this roster, and Billy Epler is scouring the market and trying to find the best deals. And ultimately, so far, he's found 2 deals where he was okay with the cost. I think he was probably much happier with the cost on this one than he was giving up Colin Holderman. And the Mets just have to keep on plugging away here. But last offseason, or last deadline, I should say, the Mets made 1 trade. The Braves made a ton of trades, and those trades ended up catapulting them and ultimately made them World Series winners when it was all said and done. The Mets are making moves here that are marginally improving the roster. They're adding to the depth, and we'll see if there's still a big swing left in them. I imagine there is, whether that is just to acquire the most elite reliever possible, or if you get both the reliever and the hitter in one trade, or if you kind of fill out the bullpen a little bit and swing a deal for a bat. We'll see what happens next, but this was a trade that I think is a very simple deal, not the biggest of win, not the biggest of losses. Just, all right, Mets get a little better. It's like Kelly Johnson or Juan Uribe back in 2015. But that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. We'll see if there's any more bonus episodes this weekend if Billy Epler remains on the phones and gets another deal done. But that's going to be all for now. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. You can follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making this show your first, maybe even your second listen today. After this, check out Locked On MLB Prospects, hosted by Lindsey Crosby, our prospect encyclopedia. There you can learn about all the different prospects that could be going out in trades at the deadline. You can follow Locked On MLB Prospects wherever you get podcasts.